So today I wanted to dive into a topic that might actually surprise you. It's this idea that people used to work a lot less in the past compared to today. Now, I know it sounds counterintuitive. After all, we've all heard stories about how grueling life was back then. The back-breaking labor of farmers and the endless hours in fields and factories. But stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll be convinced that we work more today than at any point in history. Now, if you clicked on this video just to tell me that I'm wrong, that people worked harder in the past, rest assured, I know people worked incredibly hard back then. Work today feels like kindergarten compared to the hard manual labor people endured centuries ago. But, and this is a big but, this video isn't about how hard people worked back then versus now. This is about how much people worked. And I'm here to argue that despite all the advancements and technology that we have today, we're actually working more than ever before. Now, if you've seen my videos before, you know that I have a big problem with the modern 40-hour work week. It's too much, people need more time to spend with loved ones or to just develop as human beings. We deserve better than being cogs in these soulless, profit-focused companies. Now, I've done a lot of research on this topic and how much people worked in the past, and what I found out was honestly quite shocking. Today, I'll be comparing our current working culture with two key periods in history: the medieval times, specifically the 1500s, and the pre-industrial revolution era. Spoiler alert, the biggest shift in how much people worked happened during the Industrial Revolution. Now, by the end of this video, I believe that you will be as convinced as I am that we work a lot more today than ever in human history. Let's do this. So let's start with the 1500s, the Middle Ages or medieval period. You might imagine this as a time when peasants worked in fields from sunrise to sunset, day in, day out. But here's what's surprising. People in the 1500s, particularly peasants, actually had a significant amount of free time. Medieval peasants did work year-round the way we do today. Farming was seasonal, and during the colder months, there really wasn't too much to do. Even during the growing season, it wasn't like people worked continuously. They worked in spurts and had plenty of breaks throughout the day. There were also many holidays back then, religious festivals, saints' days, and other events that added up to as many as 80 to 100 days off per year. Imagine that. Now, in some areas, peasants might work around 150 to 200 days a year, much less than the 260 or so days that a modern-day full-time employee works. Additionally, the work week in the 1500s was often shorter than what we experience today. Sundays were always a day of rest, and depending on the region, there might be some additional rest days there as well. Work wasn't as structured as it is today. People worked until the job was done, and then when it was finished, they stopped. There wasn't this modern idea of sitting at a desk or, trying to reach a specific number of hours to clock in and out. So while the work was hard, people in the 1500s had more freedom in how and when they worked. Life wasn't easy, but the concept of working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for most of the year, that would have been unheard of. Now, let's move on to the pre-industrial revolution era, right before the massive changes in technology and manufacturing. This period is crucial because it marks the biggest shift in how much people worked. Before the Industrial Revolution, most people worked in agriculture. Like in the medieval period, farming was seasonal, and work depended on the time of the year. During harvest seasons, people worked long hours, but outside of that, there were long stretches where they worked less. People didn't work 9-to-5 jobs or have these schedules. They worked when work was needed, and when it wasn't, they rested. However, what really changed during the Industrial Revolution was the introduction of factories. With factories came these strict schedules. Workers were expected to be at the factory for long hours, 6 days a week, often in unsafe and terrible working conditions. This is where we started seeing the idea of a full workday as we know it today. This is where it really took root. Before this shift, work was much more flexible and tied to rhythms of natures and seasons. Before the Industrial Revolution, people went from working for themselves on their own time to working for companies that dictated their hours and basically took over their lives. And it wasn't just men. Women and children were pulled into the workforce as well, often working in terrible conditions for long hours. And this is when we began to see the real start of wage slavery. People working just to survive, trapped in this endless cycle of labor without any real freedom. Now, let's compare that to what we have today. One major shift has been with women in the workforce. In the past, particularly before the Industrial Revolution, women stayed home to raise children and manage the household. Today, women are expected to both raise children and work full-time jobs. Now, I want to make something very clear here. I'm not saying or suggesting that women shouldn't have the same rights or opportunities as men when it comes to work. Of course, they should have that. But what I am saying is that society has placed a very huge burden on women by expecting them to handle both raising children and working full-time. The idea of having it all has become an expectation rather than a choice. And yes, I do get the argument that men are supposed to share the load at home, but let's be really honest here. Most mothers will probably agree with me that because of their maternal instincts, they often do the majority of, children raising. It's just the natural order of things in many families. Mothers are often the ones who wake up in the middle of the night, organize the kids' schedules, and feel that deep connection and responsibility for their children. Now, if I wanted to start a conspiracy theory here, I would say that the whole feminist movement was designed to push women into the workforce so companies could double their labor force. Just think about this. In the past, only one person in the household, the man, was working. Today, both men and women are expected to work full-time jobs. This means, in essence, that households are working twice as much as they did in the past. Now, if I was a woman, I would prefer that society would value the incredible work of raising children. But instead, the narrative is that women should work just as much as men, just to be seen as equals. Now, to me, that feels like a wage slave trap. I'm sorry. So, women, if you're listening, be honest. Do you really want to balance both a career and raising kids? Wouldn't you rather have more time to spend with your children? Because the reason I'm asking is because I know a lot of mothers who have told me that they cried rivers when they had to leave their kids at daycare. And the kids cry too. It's heartbreaking. The natural bond between mother and her child, it's quite strong. And yet society has forced women into this situation where they're stretched thin between work and home life. But I digress. My point is that we've moved from a time when families worked to survive and could rest when the job was done to a world where we work constantly for the majority of our lives, just to make ends meet. The idea of the 40-hour work week might seem like a standard, but really it's just a modern invention designed to keep us working as much as possible, People today are trapped in this cycle of constant labor. Even though we have all this technology that's supposed to make life easier, we're still working more than ever. The pressure to be productive, to constantly hustle and grind, has basically taken over our lives. Let's talk about where the 8-hour workday actually comes from. It wasn't designed with our well-being or balanced life in mind. The idea emerged during the Industrial Revolution in the late 19th and early 20th century, where factory owners were trying to figure out how far they could push workers before their efficiency dropped. It was all about maximizing productivity and profits, not improving workers' lives. One of the key figures in promoting the 8-hour workday was Henry Ford, who implemented it in his factories in 1914. But make no mistake about it, this wasn't out of concern for workers' health. Ford realized that after 8 hours, worker productivity started to decline, so he cut the workday to 8 hours to keep the efficiency high. It just so happened that 8 hours was the sweet spot for squeezing the most out of people without burning them out too quickly. Now, if those studies had shown that workers were most efficient at 12 hours per day, we'd be probably stuck with a 12-hour workday today. The 8-hour workday was never about giving us more freedom or balance. It was just about maximizing how much labor companies could extract from workers while keeping things running smoothly. So when you think about it, the whole 40-hour work week wasn't created with our best interests in mind. It's simply the result of businesses trying to get the most productivity from workers. We're not machines, but that's how the system treats us. Just another way to increase profits. So, what does all of this mean? Well, it means that we work more today than at any time in human history. The medieval peasants who worked with the seasons, they had more time off than we do. Even people before the Industrial Revolution who worked hard to farm and provide for their families didn't have these schedules like we do now. The Industrial Revolution is where everything changed. Factories and companies needed workers all the time, and the modern workweek was born. And today, we're still living in that system, even though we have the technology to work less. So if you think about it, we're doing more labor as a society than ever before. Women are working as much as men. We're expected to always be on at all times, working not just for our paycheck, but to build companies' profits. And the sad truth here is that we've become wage slaves, constantly grinding away with very little free time to enjoy life or develop as humans. Okay, so to wrap this up, this video isn't about how hard people worked in the past versus today. It's about how much people worked. And the evidence is clear. Today we work more than ever before. I have a huge problem with the 40-hour work week because it leaves us with so little time to truly live, you know? People deserve time to be with their families, to relax, to grow, or to just simply enjoy life. But the system we're in is designed to keep us working endlessly, like cogs in a machine. The idea that people work less in the past, it's not just an opinion, it's backed by history. We're working more today, both as individuals and households, than at any time in history. And that's something I believe we need to question. I suppose I'm asking a very simple question. Is the current way of working really the best we can do? Is it what we truly want? If put to a vote and the answer is yes, then I say, good luck with that. You know, good luck wasting your lives on giving the better part of your lives just to make company owners richer. As always, thank you for listening. Do me a favor and tap the like button to show your support. Subscribe if you're interested in more content like this. Until next time, stay hungry, relentless, and strong in your journey of escaping wage slavery. Bye. Look at that. Oh, you're still here. Oh, that's right. It's the behind the scenes vlog. This section of the video is mostly for my subscribers. This is where I share personal updates and some other thoughts, but you're happy to join us if you're new here. So, as a consultant, I often switch workplaces, and this week I've actually started a new assignment. Actually, I've gone back to one of my previous assignments, and don't worry, it's not the one that I mentioned in my previous video where I was bullied. This place is actually one of the better ones. Only downside is that it takes me an hour to commute to work. But I turned on YouTube Premium so I can download videos offline, and I also used the time to read and reply to your comments. Now, one nice thing about this place is that I get my own office this time. Usually I work in a cubicle, so it's a nice change. But as you can see, there are no windows in my office. Now, I work as a procurement specialist in this assignment. It's essentially being a strategic purchaser for the company, buying raw materials for production and so forth. The work is fine. It's very behind the scenes work, which I prefer when I'm working as a wage slave. I'd rather not, but yeah. Now you're probably wondering about my inheritance and how that's going. So the trial is still ongoing, as one family member has challenged my father's will, saying he wasn't of sound mind when he wrote the will because he was sick from cancer and took medications. He even said that my dad was essentially a drug addict because he took sleeping pills for 20 years. It's a very cheap shot, and it's very, very sad. It's a very desperate attempt also to overthrow the will, but I doubt this will fly with the judge. So at this point, all I can really do is just wait. Like I said before, I'm trying not to think too much of the outcome of this mess, because the real tragedy here is that my father passed away. Hoping to get paid, it just feels icky to me, you know? But at the same time, and let's be honest, it would free me from wage slavery. And about that, I'm actually really, really looking forward to the idea of starting my own business around this YouTube thing. I actually think that I can make it work. I'm excited about it. I have so many ideas, thinking, I've been investigating the idea of having courses, books, and maybe a mentorship program. There are so many ways to monetize content online, and I really think that I have what it takes to make it work. But we'll see how it goes. And also, if I fail, at least I get 3 years of pursuing my dream. That's how long I expect the money to last before I would be forced to go back to wage slavery. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.